Have you ever wondered why a flipped coin doesn't always land heads up, even if it has landed tails for the past 10 flips? This question may seem a bit odd, but it's a perfect introduction to the fascinating world of probability and chance. You see, probability is a concept that deals with the likelihood of an event happening. In other words, it's a mathematical way of expressing uncertainty. Now, you might think that if a coin has landed tails up 10 times in a row, the chances of it landing heads up on the next flip have to be higher, right? It's due for a heads. Well, this is a common misconception many people have about probability and chance. It's a belief that past events can somehow influence future outcomes in random scenarios. Let's stick with our coin flip example. A coin flip is a classic example of a random event. The outcome, whether heads or tails, is completely independent of any previous flips. Each flip of the coin is an independent event, meaning that it's not affected by what happened before. So even if you flip tails 10 times in a row, the chance of getting heads or tails on the next flip remains the same, 50%. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, it would seem that after a long streak of tails, a heads result is overdue. But this is where probability can be a bit tricky. The coin has no memory. It doesn't know that it has landed tails 10 times in a row. Each flip is a fresh start, a new event with the same odds as before. So when dealing with random events like a coin flip, it's essential to remember that the past doesn't influence the future. Each event is independent, and the outcome will always be uncertain. But is this really how probability works? Let's delve deeper. Welcome to the world of the gambler's fallacy. This is a fascinating realm where our brains play tricks on us and lead us to believe in patterns where there are none. The gambler's fallacy, also known as the Monte Carlo fallacy, is a misbelief rooted in the idea that past random events can influence future ones. Imagine you're flipping a coin. It lands on heads 5 times in a row. Now, what do you think the outcome of the next flip will be? If you said tails because it feels due, congratulations. You've just fallen into the gambler's fallacy. The reality is, each coin flip is an independent event. The coin doesn't have a memory, and it certainly doesn't know that it landed on heads 5 times before. The probability of it landing on tails or heads remains the same with each flip, a 50-50 chance regardless of what happened in the past. Now let's take this concept out of the casino and into everyday life. Have you ever thought, it's been raining all week, so it's bound to be sunny tomorrow? Or perhaps you know a family with 5 daughters who are convinced their next child must be a boy. These are both examples of the gambler's fallacy. Just like the coin, the weather doesn't remember the past week of rain, and it doesn't owe us a sunny day. Similarly, each pregnancy is an independent event with roughly equal chances for a boy or a girl, regardless of the gender of the previous children. It's easy to fall into the gambler's fallacy because our brains are wired to see and understand patterns. But in the world of probability, each event is independent, and the past doesn't influence the future. So the next time you expect a certain outcome based on previous events, remember, you might just be falling into the gambler's fallacy. Imagine you're at a roulette wheel in a casino. The ball has landed on red 5 times in a row. Where do you place your bet? Now let's delve into a scenario that perfectly illustrates the gambler's fallacy. The roulette wheel, a symbol of chance and uncertainty, is a fantastic example of how this fallacy can manipulate our decision-making process. You might think, surely the next spin has to be black. It can't be red again, not after 5 times. This thought process is the essence of the gambler's fallacy. It's a common belief that if something happens more frequently than normal during a certain period, it's less likely to happen in the future. But here's the truth. This belief is fundamentally flawed. The roulette wheel, like any game of chance, doesn't follow a pattern or a sequence. Each spin is an independent event. This means the wheel doesn't remember the previous spins. The odds of landing on red or black remain the same, regardless of what's happened before. It's easy to get caught up in the illusion of patterns, especially when you're in the heat of the moment, chips in hand, surrounded by the buzz and glamour of the casino. But remember, each spin of that wheel is like a fresh start, a new roll of the dice. The outcome of the previous spin has no bearing on the next. It's natural for us humans to look for patterns, for some semblance of predictability in the chaos. But in the world of probability, the concept of due doesn't exist. Just because red has come up 5 times in a row doesn't mean black is due. To put it simply, the chances of the ball landing on red or black are equal every time the wheel is spun. The wheel doesn't know it's landed on red 5 times in a row. It doesn't care. It doesn't adjust its odds to even things out. The wheel has no memory, and neither does chance. Ever thought of playing a lottery number that hasn't won in a while, thinking it's due to win? This thought process is a classic example of the gambler's fallacy. You might think that if a specific lottery number hasn't come up in a while, it's bound to show up soon, but that's not how probability works. Let's break it down. Each lottery draw is an individual, independent event. This means that the outcome of one draw has no bearing on the outcome of the next. It's a bit like flipping a coin. Even if you flip a coin and get heads 10 times in a row, the chances of getting heads or tails on the 11th flip are still 50-50. The same principle applies to the lottery. Each number has an equal chance of being drawn, regardless of when it was last drawn. So, picking a number because it hasn't won in a while, that's not a winning strategy. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that past results can predict future ones. After all, our brains are wired to look for patterns. But in the world of probability, patterns don't exist. Each event is independent and unaffected by what came before it. So, when you're choosing your lottery numbers, remember that each draw is a fresh start. The numbers that were drawn last week, last month, or last year, they don't matter. The only thing that matters is the draw happening right now. It's a hard concept to wrap our heads around. We want to believe that we can predict the unpredictable, that we can find a pattern in the randomness. But the truth is, we can't. And that's what the gambler's fallacy is all about. So the next time you're picking your lottery numbers, don't be tricked into thinking that a number is due to win. It's not. Each draw is independent, and every number has an equal chance of being drawn. Remember, past performance is not indicative of future results. So, what have we learned about the gambler's fallacy today? Well, we've taken a deep dive into the world of probability and chance, unraveling the common misconception known as the gambler's fallacy. We've discovered that it's a cognitive bias, a glitch in our thinking, that makes us believe that past random events can influence future ones. We've understood that this fallacy lies in our tendency to see patterns where there are none, to predict the unpredictable. We've used the roulette wheel as an example where the ball has no memory of where it landed last time. It doesn't care if it landed on red 5 times in a row, or if it hasn't landed on black in a while. Each spin is an independent event, and the odds remain the same, regardless of past outcomes. We've also talked about the lottery fallacy. How often have you heard someone say, "I've been playing the same numbers for years, they're bound to come up eventually"? But, as we've learned, each lottery draw is a separate event, and previous results have no bearing on the next draw. The numbers don't know they're overdue. They don't feel any pressure to show up. So, you see, the gambler's fallacy can trip up even the most rational among us. It's not just about gambling, it permeates our daily decision-making, from financial investments to sports predictions, and even weather forecasts. The key takeaway here is this: in a world of random events, past outcomes do not predict future ones. Each event is independent, and chance, my friends, has no memory. Being aware of this fallacy can help us make better decisions, grounded in reality, not in perceived patterns or trends. It can save us from the pitfalls of misguided expectations and prevent us from falling prey to the deceptive allure of the gambler's fallacy. Probability has a funny way of fooling us, but now that you're aware of the gambler's fallacy, you're one step ahead. Remember, each event is independent, and chance has no